Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the reports that allies of Jeremy Corbyn have said that he will stand as an independent if he cannot stand for the Labour Party at the next election. This is going to get spicy. I'm also going to say, if you are still a Corbyn supporter after everything, I'm just going to say this. Either don't watch it, or do, but don't go whining. If you don't like what I have to say, I'm not going to read it. I care more about the people whose lives have been ruined than the fragile ego of one man and his cultists. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I'm going to begin by saying that, yes, there are people who still support Corbyn very genuinely. They just don't have their eyes open. They think, oh, he supports these things and he's anti-poverty and anti-racism. He's like, he's not. Well, he is anti-poverty. He's not anti-racism. He's a man who has supported genocide in Syria and Ukraine. He's not compassionate. He's a man who has been found to have failed to act against racism by two different independent reports as anti-racist. He's not anti-racist, is he? You can say he's not racist, but you can't say he's anti-racist if he doesn't oppose racism. So you're not going to like this one. But in fact, I've got no intention of pulling my punches here, so you've been warned. I'm not going to bother justifying things either, because I've done all that in the past, which is where Corbyn and his posse have been living for decades now. I feel immense sympathy for those who still think he's decent just because he advocated some decent policies and their brain fogs over when they look at the less decent policies. But he advocated deeply damaging policies, and above all, he was responsible for the most extreme authoritarian government this country has seen in modern times. The sort of fascism that previous generations of even Tories were afraid of has been unleashed because of Jeremy Corbyn's time as leader of the Labour Party. It doesn't matter whether he intended it or not. I don't think he did. It doesn't matter. He knew it was happening. But what I'm going to discuss in this video is the curious strategy at play, if it is true that Corbyn will stand as an independent. I will just say this is not the first time that Corbyn's allies have said a thing and Corbyn himself has hidden away. See, this was part of his failure as leader. His allies would whine about the way the media portrayed him, and I used to ask, well, what's he ever done about it? What's he doing about it? Oh, they're so mean. Yes, politics is mean. What's he doing about it? Where were his rebuttals? Where were his articles in the newspapers defending his position? Nowhere. Didn't bother with them, did he? Just hid away. Just like now, gets his mates to do his talking for him. Now, it might be that his allies are just shooting their mouths off yet again and that Corbyn has no intention of standing as an independent. And that would be where I'd left it up until now, because that's happened so many times before. However, I will say this. Jeremy Corbyn has now said, Starmer basically said yesterday that Jeremy Corbyn is not going to stand as a Labour candidate. You know, at the end of the day, Corbyn had plenty of time to toe the party line, and he refused. So now Jeremy Corbyn's come out and said that Starmer can't stop him standing as a Labour candidate, and if these small number of people in his local constituency group say they want him, then he will stand. This is, of course, nonsense for two reasons. First, when Corbyn was leader, he had a hand in determining candidates for selection by the local party. Constituency where I live now had a candidate just foisted upon them when Corbyn was leader. He didn't even give them a section to choose from. You know, he didn't even say, look, these three seem to agree with our values, so, you know, you pick which one of those you'd be happy with. No, it was just, this is your candidate. Oh, what if we like, no, this is your candidate. That happened under Corbyn. Not actually a big deal here, because this is Tory central. They had no chance of winning anyway. It doesn't matter. It was just a bit of experience. But just to get across the notion, he did not recuse himself from candidate selection while leader. Secondly, no matter how Corbyn conducted himself as leader, Starmer absolutely can stop him standing as a Labour candidate. That's just party rules. This statement from Corbyn sounds to me like he's trying to work out some way to justify to people standing as an independent without looking like he's standing as an independent. What's he going to call himself? The real Labour Party? Oh, that like the Tories did in last year's local elections, like the real Conservative, or the local. They call themselves the local Conservative Party. It's Jeremy Corbyn. Easy to mix them up. Is he going to say he's going to be the real Labour Party? But if he does, there are two things to say, really. I mean, first, it's really easy. For Labour, it makes no difference. It actually makes no difference. I don't know why people think that, oh, it should be a smart move from Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn has never been a Labour MP. He's always acted in exactly the same way as if he were an independent MP. And what is the difference between Jeremy Corbyn as an independent MP, the way he's behaved, and Jeremy Corbyn as a Labour MP? There is none. Ever. He's never paid any attention to the whips. So, you know, the only difference is that he'd never have actually been elected as an independent. So from the point of view of the Labour leadership, they haven't had an MP for Islington North for decades. That's just a fact. If he won't toe the party line and follow the directions of the whip, you know, except on cases, dissension is sometimes justified if the government steer a path that that MP believes is wrong and it is not in line with the manifesto, then actually that is where, a rebellion can be justified. But when you're voting against the manifesto promises, you're not acting as a Labour MP. Doesn't matter what excuses people come up with. If there's no difference in his behaviour between being an independent and being a Labour MP, then he's not a Labour MP. It's as simple as that. And I think Jeremy Corbyn, he could easily win this seat as an independent. He's very popular in his constituency, no doubt about it. It's doubtful that any ambitious Labour candidate would want to be seen dead running against him there, so they're not likely to get a really top quality Labour candidate to run. Nothing to do with respect, but because he has a hardcore of support that are every bit as hateful, vindictive and cruel as the far-right Tories like Lee Anderson that they claim to oppose. You know, there will be crimes committed. There will be intimidation of the candidate. There'll be thefts and violence. We've seen it all before. We saw it in Batley and Spen. That was Galloway's hoods rather than Corbyn's. But it is a small group of them that are just as nasty. But if Corbyn's allies think that winning the seat as an independent will embarrass Labour, and Starmer in particular, they are showing a level of strategic incompetence that actually explains our worst ever election result in modern times. I mean, I knew they were dumb. I didn't think they were this dumb. Let's think it through. Let us imagine Labour. They're finalising candidate selection ahead of the general election. Corbyn announces that he's standing as an independent. Now, if he's smart, he'll announce his candidacy at the last possible day. But I'm not sure he's that smart. So what do his cronies in the Parliamentary Labour Party do? Can't back a non-Labour candidate, against the rules. I know Kate Hoey did. You know, she actively, I don't know why the Corbynists don't make more of this. She actively trashed Jeremy Corbyn in public as a Labour MP and campaigned with Nigel Farage for the Brexit Party as a Labour MP. And yet she didn't have the whip withdrawn. It's ridiculous, such weakness. Starmer's not going to be that weak. And the Corbyn crew, also known as the SCG. It's funny how entryists into political parties in Parliament like the three-letter acronyms, don't they? But these guys do not want to give up their seat on the gravy train. Yes, brilliant. The party machine gets to put in the hard work, getting them elected, because they couldn't get elected on their own. And then they just behave like pirates, swanning around Westminster, pursuing their own little hobby horses. Oh, the Labour whip wants to talk to me. Oh, I'm not interested. You know, it's a brilliant grift. Brilliant grift. Not one of them has ever been involved in a winning election campaign for Labour. Not one of them has ever taken part in organising a Labour win at an election. They've been involved in a few losing ones, but never a winning one. They're not interested in winning. They tried to support Russia over Ukraine in a signed letter. Starmer told them, take your signatures off that or you're out on your arse. They complied. That indicates that they do not want to lose the whip. Without the whip, their seat on the gravy train is gone. Corbyn can probably keep his. The rest, no, not so much. So what will the SCG do when Corbyn announces that he's standing as an independent? Do they back him? If they back him, they're out. If they don't back him, well, what are the Corbynistas going to say? They're going to, Richard, John, Diane, what do you think about Jeremy Corbyn standing as the real Labour Party? No comment, no comment. Well, why? Why not? Why not? Put your money where your mouth is, John. Well, why not comment? No. Corbyn standing would not embarrass Starmer. It would embarrass himself, even if he wins. Corbyn could win his seat and then have to sit alone in some dusty corner of the opposition benches, as he does now. His friends wouldn't even be giving him encouraging smiles opposite because they would not be allowed to stand as Labour candidates if they back a non-Labour candidate in the election. And for what? What do they gain? What does Corbyn even need to be an MP for? He's got a large enough following to go off and do his little projects around the world without being an MP. In fact, it would help. He'd have more time to spend on it. What would even be the point of standing, especially if it runs the risk of wiping out a dozen troublesome kindred spirits in Parliament? No Prime Minister wants rebels in the party. You accept that there will be some. In fact, Tony Blair, several times, was told to withdraw the whip from Jeremy Corbyn because he just would not comply. And he said, no, we need a range of views. Not a position Corbyn himself adopted as leader, I notice. You know, as long as they don't derail your main legislative agenda, it's fine. It encourages debate, no problem. It's irritating, though. But they still prefer to be without them. Corbyn standing creates a problem for the SCG. If they back his move, they're out. If they don't back him, they're in conflict with the mob. And the entire episode will attract attention. Like, this is the first video on Corbyn I've done pretty much since he was leader, because it's not really newsworthy. And I'm not after trying to, like, stoke divisions. The real enemy is the Tory government. But it's going to be newsworthy, even in the media. The ordinary voters who couldn't back Labour because of the toxicity of Corbyn will look at these stories, and what will they see? What will they see? They'll see the Labour leadership standing up to the part of Labour that couldn't bring themselves to vote for. You know, the death throes of the toxic bit of Labour that put them off voting to get rid of the Tories at the last election. That's what they're going to see. There is no bad outcome here for Starmer. There are several possible ways this could go, but none of them are bad. And it can only take the most unstrategic thinking to ever consider that any possible outcome here could be a problem for Starmer. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.